My name is Jeff Wilson. By day, I invest in tech companies, and at night, I invest in sports cards. Join me on my journey to profit from the hobby we all love. Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to another episode. And today's episode, we are tackling a topic that has been on my mind. It might be on your mind as well, and it is, what are we doing right now with Luka? Because the prices of Luka cards have gone wild. This has been an amazing run of Luka card prices in this 2019-2020 NBA season. Of course, his on-court performance has been wild. We could be looking at a guy who could be one of the greatest NBA players of all time, potentially, and we're sitting here looking at him in his second year going, he is doing absolutely amazing stuff, especially for a second-year player. So his card prices have gone crazy and have reflected that. The question now becomes, is it the time to sell if you're holding any Luka cards, or perhaps is it actually the time to buy more? Or maybe it's simply the time to hold. If you have some Luka cards, maybe it's the time to hold and see what happens down the road. Well, what you should do, buy, sell, or hold, is what we're going to be talking about and what I'm going to try to break down for you in today's episode. But first, I want to let you know that I have a new sponsor of the show for the month of December who has a very special promotion for me to offer you. The sponsor is StockEx. As many of you know, StockEx has gotten big into the trading card arena. It's wonderful to have another reputable online merchant trying to make big waves in the trading card arena. And StockEx is doing it differently and in a lot of ways better than what other sites out there are doing in terms of buying and selling trading cards. If you have not been on StockX's website, you'll notice, first of all of the cards that they're selling that you can buy or sell through their website are only graded cards. Only PSA or BGS graded, which as an investor, that's something that I like. They've also done a really nice job of having all of the buying and selling for each particular card on one single page for that card. So you're not having to go hunt through endless eBay listings to find different cards that you're looking for. So it's a really nice interface. I suggest you check it out. And they're giving a special offer right now to listeners of Sports Card Investor. If you use promo code SCIPOD, SCIPOD, you're going to get $10 off of any card purchase of $50 or more. So take advantage of that code SCIPOD, go to StockX and get $10 off of any card purchase of $50 or more. Thank you, StockX, for sponsoring the show. We welcome you as a December sponsor. So let's talk Luka. This topic today about Luka is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And the reason why is this. These are all Luka Prism Silver PSA 10s that I bought at the National this summer. I went to the National in Chicago, and when I was there, I was hunting around for different players who I considered to be investment opportunities. One of the guys I was looking around for was Luka. And I found a dealer at the National that had a bunch of the Silver Prism PSA 10s, and I decided to buy 10 of them off of the dealer. We negotiated quite a bit on price. I ended up buying them for $535 each. At that time, these cards were selling on eBay for around $600, just north of $600. Of course, by me buying 10 from the dealer, I'm saving him eBay fees. So from his perspective, he's certainly getting some cost savings that way. And since I bought them in bulk, I was able to negotiate for a little bit of a better price from him. And that's why I got them for $535 each. Well, those cards, if you've been watching, have gone on an absolutely amazing run. And let's bring up a graph for those of you watching on the YouTube show to see what those cards have done since August, since the time that I bought those cards, since before the NBA season started. They've gone from being, in the $500 to $600 range where they consistently were most of the summer. They have shot up. They actually peaked over $2,000 a couple of weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving. There were a couple of auctions and other sales on eBay that closed at just over $2,000 for the Luka PSA 10 Prism Silver card. They've come down a little bit since then, and the most recent auctions of these cards have closed for somewhere between about $1,500 and $1,700 is what those cards are currently going for. So even at the price that they've come down to a little bit, they have still gone up about 3 times since the start of the season. So an incredible run for his card prices this year. But with such a run, it has me asking the question, with me holding cards like this, I am asking myself actively, is now the time to sell? And I'm sure if some of you out there own Luka cards as well, this is probably a question that you're wrestling with a little bit too. Are the prices so high now that now is the time to get out? Or are you going to be kicking yourself down the road if you sell these cards now and then they continue to go up and up on the run that they're on? In order to tackle the question of is now the time to sell, I want to go back and look at some different scenarios to help inform this. And there's 3 different ways that if you're gonna try to answer this question, there's 3 different groups that I think you can look at. The first is you can look at other players in Luka's draft class, same cards of other players in his draft class to draw comparisons there. The second group you can look at is you can look at the prices of similar players in similar situations in previous years. So players who were maybe in their second year or early in their career in previous years who had a run up in card prices like Luka has seen, and then what happened to their card prices after that run up occurred, right? The third group that you can look at for comparison's sake is you can look at other all-star type players today who weren't in his draft class. These are, older players, but you can look at what the population counts are of some of their key rookie cards and then find cards of theirs that have similar population counts to Luka's, in my case, Prism Silver PSA 10s, and then do a price comparison that way to kind of look at what the what the market is on those guys if you're comparing similar population counts to what the market is on Luka today. So those are 3 different ways that you could kind of look at the market and start to ascertain where Luka's values are at currently and where they could potentially go from here. So let's go ahead and dive in. So the first group is looking at the prices of the same cards of other players in Luka's draft class. Luka is by far the most valuable player from the 2018-2019 draft class. Again, with his Prism Silvers bouncing around right now between about $1,500 and $1,700. The second most valuable player from the draft class in terms of Prism Silver prices, PSA 10, is Trae Young. Now, Trae Young has had a really nice run-up of his own this year in terms of his card prices. Trae Young's cards are currently in about the $500 to $550 range for his PSA 10 Silvers. So he's about a third of the price of Luka. So the question becomes, is that around the right point? Trae Young being about a third of the price of Luka. I think so. I think Trae Young is a super exciting, flashy player, scores a ton of points. And I like the fact that I think Trae Young's got a great career in front of him. So I actually like the value that Trae Young presents. And if you gave me the choice of buying 3 Trae Young cards or 1 Luka card right now, I would probably be buying 3 Trae Young cards. But I can understand why Luka is trading for 3 times more. Some of the stuff, Luka's doing it more consistently. His performance is more consistent than Trae Young. He's helping his team in a wider variety of ways than Trae Young is. He's doing it against better competition than Trae Young is, being in the West. And he also, the Mavericks are just a better team overall. They've got a lot more potential than the Hawks do. The Hawks obviously are struggling as a team, not a very good record. So I can understand Luka's prices being 3 times more than Trae Young's prices right now. So I think that says, okay, his prices are probably within the range of where they should be if we make that comparison. The third most valuable guy in the 2018-2019 draft class right now is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. His cards are about $250 to $300 for his Prism Silver PSA 10. So his cards are about 1/6 of the price, 1/5 to 1/6 of the price of Luka's cards. And again, I think that that's fine. I think Luka has certainly cemented himself as a significantly better player at this point. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think he's got a lot of potential, but I mean, Luka is at this point more proven for sure. And, I like the Mavericks more than Oklahoma City in terms of the team makeup. So I think, I think looking at those comparisons in his current draft class tells me that Luka's cards are at an okay price position. So I didn't learn a lot, in my opinion, from looking at him compared to his current draft class. Nothing stood out there to me as being particularly unusual. Let's then look at let's look historically at other players, and we'll look across different sports that have had a similar beginning of season run-up to what Luka has experienced in the past. And let's see if those comparisons teach us anything about whether Luka's cards have potential to continue to go up or if they're perhaps a bit overpriced at the moment. So one player who comes to mind immediately who has actually seen a very similar run-up in price this year to Luka is over in football, Lamar Jackson. So let's take a look at Lamar Jackson's 2018 Prism PSA 10s and how they've compared to what Luka has done. Now, what I'm looking at here is simply his 2018 base Prism. So the graph I showed you earlier in the prices I've been talking about with Luka have been his Prism Silver, but there's not enough Lamar Jackson 2018 Prism Silvers that have been sold. That's a lower population card. So it was difficult to chart enough sales to really show a good sales graph for that. So we're just looking at Lamar Jackson's base Prism. And what you see is that before this season started, those base Prism cards were trading for well under $50. And they are currently going for north of $400. So Lamar Jackson's actually seen a more significant increase in his card prices from a percentage basis than Luka has this year. Whereas Luka's cards have gone up about 3 times, Lamar Jackson's cards have actually gone up about 8 times, or more than 8 times, actually, about 10 times. But they also were starting from a much lower price point to begin with, and Lamar Jackson didn't have the same degree of success last year that Luka did. He had some success. He came in, and led the Ravens to the playoffs last year, but he wasn't as hyped and people weren't as convinced about his abilities last year as Luka. They were more surprised by Lamar Jackson's abilities this year than people have been about Luka's abilities. So it makes sense that Lamar Jackson's prices have gone on a more dramatic increase. The problem with the comparison to Lamar Jackson is it doesn't teach us anything in terms of where the cards could go. All it shows us is that it's possible for players in any sport who start their second year hot to have this type of run-up. This type of thing can happen. We're seeing it this year in basketball with Luka. We're seeing it this year in football with Lamar. But looking at Lamar doesn't answer the question as to where Luka can go. So let's look at another football player. Let's look at Patrick Mahomes, who did the same thing but 1 year before Luka, to see if we learn anything from that. So we're looking at a graph of Patrick Mahomes' 2017 Prism Silver cards. So these are his rookie cards, PSA 10. And the graph that we're looking at here is from his second season playing. So this was Mahomes' second season. This was the year that was really the breakout year for Mahomes. This was last NFL season. And as you can see, he started his second year with his card prices very, very low. Less than $50, well under $50, and ended the year with those card prices between about $150 and $200. So he had a nice run-up. Percentage-wise, he had a similar run-up to what Luka has done so far this year, about a 300 to 400% type of run-up over the course of the year. Now, the comparison is not perfect because Patrick Mahomes, unlike Luka, Patrick Mahomes, his first year, hadn't done a whole lot, whereas Luka, his first year, already had a lot of popularity. But nonetheless, it's interesting to look at what Patrick Mahomes did his second year and the fact that his card prices did push up 300 to 400% his second year. But then the question becomes, what did Patrick Mahomes do in year 3? So here's a graph of Patrick Mahomes' year 3 prices. His PSA 10 Silver Prism rookie cards started this season, year 3, around $300 a card, and they went all the way up to $1,600 a card at their peak. They had an absolutely amazing run up this year, but then they started to tail off. Kansas City started losing some games. He got injured and was out for a couple of games. People started thinking that maybe Kansas City is no longer the favorite for the Super Bowl. And of course, Lamar Jackson got hot too and actually stole a lot of the limelight from Patrick Mahomes. So as a result, his cards, which peaked at $1,600 this season, have now come all the way back down to somewhere just south of $600 was his most recent sale, but somewhere between kind of $600 and $700 is probably about what the prices are on those cards right now, compared to around $300 when they started the season. So in my opinion, you could look at this two different ways. One way you could look at this is saying like, okay, so in his third year, Patrick Mahomes came out hot and really, really hot, and his cards continue to go up and up. Luka's only in his second year. So what that may mean is that next year, if Luka comes out like a superstar again, that there is potential for his cards to continue to push, just like Patrick Mahomes' cards continue to push up in his third year. That's one way of looking at it. There is another way of looking at it, though. And the other way of looking at it is that Patrick Mahomes' third year might actually be a little bit more akin to what we're seeing from Luka right now in his second year, because Luka was already a proven commodity last year in his rookie year. So that's kind of equivalent to maybe Patrick Mahomes' second year in the league, where they were both, really proven commodities at that point in time. So Patrick Mahomes, comes out this year, much like Luka, gets red hot. His card prices go up like crazy, but then people start to realize the Chiefs are not necessarily going to go anywhere this season. Their defense looks suspect. They're no longer the favorites to win the Super Bowl. You've got Baltimore and the Patriots, who are more heavily favored, even in the AFC, to get to the Super Bowl. People maybe started to doubt Patrick Mahomes a little bit and realize maybe he's not going to have that Super Bowl run in him this year, and his cards have gone way down. Now, I do worry with Luka that as this season goes on, people are going to realize that the Mavericks are really not a contender to win a championship or not even necessarily have a deep playoff run in the West this season. They're a good story. They're doing well. They're currently certainly exceeding people's expectations. But I don't think that they're actually going to be serious competition for the teams like the Rockets or the Clippers in the West when you get into playoff time. And I think that most basketball fans and most basketball analysts would agree with that. So I do wonder if we start to see a little bit of a cooling off with Luka. And of course, we have already seen a little bit of a fall, right? Luka's cards did get over $2,000, and they're now back down in that $1,500 to $1,600 range. Again, looking at his Prism Silver PSA 10s. So taking a look at some historical basketball player performances, it is difficult to go back in time and find comparables of basketball cards where the players have started off so hot at the beginning of a season. Last year, we saw Kawhi Leonard's cards go absolutely crazy, but that was at the end of the season. Kawhi's cards went absolutely crazy during the playoffs. When he went on that amazing playoff run and won the title, his cards went up 5 or 6 times during the course of that playoff run. It was awesome to see. But that, again, was driven by a playoff run and a title. Going back to a player who really was hot at the beginning of this season and saw an incredible run up in his card prices, the best comparison I could come up with was looking at Steph Curry and looking at Steph Curry's card prices to begin the 2015-2016 season. Now, if I take you back in time, just to remind you, Steph Curry won the MVP in 2014 and 2015. He had been in the league at this point about 5 years. So he was not a brand new commodity. He wasn't a second-year player like Luka was. He was more of a proven commodity, had already won an MVP. And of course, the Warriors won the title in 2014-2015. But the 2015-2016 season actually saw the most dramatic run-up in Steph Curry's card prices. And the reason why is the 2015-2016 season was that incredible Warriors season where they won their first 24 games of the season. They ended the season going 73-9, best record in the history of the NBA. Of course, they lost in the finals to the Cavs in a 7-game series, but they were a historically great team, and Steph Curry's personal statistics got remarkably better in 2015-2016. Even though he won the MVP in 2014-2015, he was only scoring 23.8 points per game. But in 2015-2016, he scored 30.1 points per game. So he had a big points per game increase. He also increased his number of threes per game. He was on average getting 1.5 additional threes per game. So that was really Steph Curry's best season, was that 2015-2016 season. And looking at what his card prices did over the course of that season, he went into that season. I'm looking at his 2009-2010 Topps Chrome BGS 9.5. Those cards were less than just under $200 entering that season, right around the $200 mark. And by the time March rolled around, they were peaking at just north of $2,000. So his cards actually had a 10x run up over the course of that season at their peak. Now his cards, though, did dive back down pretty sharply as the season went on. And in fact, they ended the year around $800. $700 to $800 is where his cards were at the end of the season. Now, of course, they lost the title, and they had some struggles in the playoffs. You know, Oklahoma City took them in the conference championship. Oklahoma City took them to 7 games as well. So I think that they started to run out of steam a little bit. They weren't as dominant in the postseason as they were in the regular season. But his card prices started dipping some even before the postseason. So he had this amazing run up. But then, for whatever reason, card prices started to come down a little bit. And then in the postseason, when they didn't get things done, the card prices came down a little bit further. So that, drawing a comparison there potentially to Luka, obviously it's a bit of a different situation with Steph Curry that year. But he did have that amazing run. But when they couldn't sustain it, when they couldn't finish the year with a title, the cards did come back down. And that again goes back to one of the concerns I have right now about Luka. He's not going to finish this year with a title. He's probably not even going to finish this year with a whole lot of playoff success. So I do worry about what that means for his card prices. So now I want to do one more type of comparison, and that is comparing Luka's card prices to the card prices of other all-star players who are more proven than Luka right now, who have similar population counts of their cards according to PSA and BGS, and try to draw a comparison this way to maybe show us where the ceiling of Luka's cards could be, or if Luka's cards are perhaps even overvalued right now. So the first player I want to compare Luka to is Yanis. And I'm doing this because Yanis is, obviously one of the more recent players. He was a rookie in 2013. He's not won a title yet, just like Luka hasn't won a title, but Yanis did win an MVP award last year, which obviously Luka hasn't done yet. But I could see, Luka in a few years, I could see being similar to where Yanis is today. So looking at those two guys, I thought was a good comparison, and especially since their cards have similar population counts for some of their cards. So Luka's Silver Prism from this year, there's 1,316 PSA 10s of Luka's Silver Prism for this year. Giannis's 2013 base prism, there's 1,841 PSA 10s of that card. Now that's his base prism, not his silver prism. I'm not using his silver prism because of the fact that year in 2013, silver prisms were extremely short printed. In fact, there's less than 40 Silver Prism PSA 10s from Yanis that year. So it would be really difficult to compare apples to apples if we're comparing a Silver Prism where there are less than 40 PSA 10s in Yanis's year to a Silver Prism of Luka's where there are over 1,300 PSA 10s. So instead, I'm going to compare Luka's Silver Prism to Yanis's base prism because they have similar-ish population counts. You can see them on your screen here for comparison. And when you do that, you see that Luka's cards are selling for about 3 times more than what Yanis's cards are selling for with similar population counts. So Luka's Silver Prism PSA 10s are currently selling for about 3 times more than Yanis's 2013 base Prisms, but the population count of those cards are very, very similar. And in fact, I would argue that in the long run, the Yanis card will actually be more rare, because with Luka, there's still a lot of cards in the process of being graded. There's also still a lot of unopened wax from last year. So Luka's population counts are going to continue to go up and up and up pretty significantly, in my opinion, over the next 12 to 24 months. Whereas there's not a lot of unopened 2013 Prisms sitting out there, and there's not a lot of Yanis's cards that have not been sent off for grading from 2013. So Yanis's population counts are likely not going to move nearly as much. So using this comparison gives me some pause on where Luka's prices are today, and actually makes me think maybe Yanis is actually a pretty good value right now compared to Luka, especially since the fact that Yanis's team is in a much better position to potentially win the title this year than Luka's team. Much better position. So this comparison has actually motivated me to pick up some more Yanis cards. And I just before the show went on StockEx, where they actually have several different Yanis cards currently for sale. Prices which they're selling for, if you want to buy it now, they're a little bit high. They're not crazy high, but I put in a bid of $540 on a Yanis PSA 10. And then, of course, I used the promo code that I mentioned earlier in the show, SCI Pod, to go ahead and get an extra $10 off of that if somebody accepts my bid. Hopefully they do, because I would love to get a little bit more Yanis. So hopefully I'll get my bid accepted on StockEx. Another player who I think you could compare Luka to, let's draw a comparison between Luka and Kevin Durant. Now, obviously, Kevin Durant's much more accomplished. Kevin Durant's already won 2 championships plus an MVP award. I think it's really interesting to compare Luka's current Prism Silver prices to Kevin Durant's 2007 Topps Chrome Refractor. And the reason why I think this is an interesting comparison is because the prices of these cards are pretty similar. Durant's 2007 Topps Chrome Refractor in PSA 10 is currently selling for about $1,900 to $2,000. So slightly above Luka's Prism Silver, but right in the ballpark. Whereas BGS 9.5 is currently selling for around $1,100. So right in the ballpark of what Luka's Silver BGS 9.5 is currently selling for. But here's what's really interesting. Durant's population count. That Durant PSA 10 that I just mentioned, only 178 of those exist in the world, compared to the 1,316 Lukas that exist in PSA 10. So basically what I'm telling you is that you can get a Durant PSA 10 that is 10 times more rare, his rookie card in a Topps Chrome Refractor, 10 times more rare than Luka's Prism Silver PSA 10, and yet you can get him for right around the same price. And Durant's a much more accomplished guy. That concerns me big time about what Luka's prices are going for right now when you draw that comparison to Durant. Let's draw one more comparison. Let's draw a comparison to LeBron. LeBron obviously, is going to maybe show us the absolute high ceiling for Luka. If Luka's career plays out the way that some hope it will, multiple MVP awards, winning some championships, maybe he can push up into LeBron territory with his prices. So this might show us kind of a high end. So if I look at LeBron's 2003 Topps Chrome Refractor, these cards have a much lower population count than what Luka's cards currently are going for. But the PSA 10 of LeBron's Topps Chrome Refractor, which is 168 population, is going for between about $9,000 and $11,000. But again, that's only 10% of the population of what Luka's card is currently. So if you consider the rarity of LeBron's card, there's not even that much premium built in to what Luka's cards are currently going for. If you look at BGS, the BGS 9.5, there's 408 of those of LeBron's, and those are going for between about $5,000 to $6,000 a pop. So again, a much rarer card than Luka's Prism Silver cards. They are going for several times what Luka's Prism Silver cards are currently going for, but they're much more rare. But maybe that begins to show you what's possible. What is the conclusion that I'm drawing from all of this? The conclusion that I'm drawing is that I do believe that Luka's prices right now are too high for what he has accomplished. I believe that there is a belief built into these card prices where they stand currently that Luka is going to go on and win some MVP awards and maybe win a championship. And though that belief is already baked into the prices that these cards are selling for when they're selling for $1,500 plus for a Prism Silver PSA 10. So if Luka doesn't make his way to an MVP award this year or in the very near future, or if the Mavericks do not look like they're going to be competitive for a deep playoff run in the near future, I do expect Luka's card prices to come down, especially relative to some of these other guys who I talked about today. So I do expect somewhat of a softening to occur. I do think now is a good time to sell your Luka cards if you're looking to sell your Luka cards. One general point I do want to make when you're assessing when is the time to sell a card and is now the time to sell these Luka cards is you never know for sure. No one can predict any market with any degree of certainty. All you can do is make your best guess. And that's all I'm doing. I'm making an educated guess off of information that I have seen elsewhere, information looking at some of this historical performance and looking at some of Luka's counterparts. It's an educated guess. I don't know. Luka could continue to go up. He could continue to see his prices push up and up for the rest of the season. But it is my best guess, based upon the comparisons that I have done, that that is probably likely not going to happen. And this is probably likely the time to sell. But it's nothing more than an educated guess. But the way that I look at it is I am happy with the return that I have made on these cards. Buying these cards for $535 over in August, over the summer, and now having the opportunity to sell those cards for $1,500 plus today, making a 3x return on those cards in a fairly short time period, that is a good return. I am happy to take some chips off the table, to take my profit. And even if those cards do go up a little bit in the second half of the season, I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to have gotten my chips off the table and made a profit I am happy with. And it is my belief that when you're investing in sports cards, you need to be thinking about what point in time am I going to be happy with the return? And when those cards get to that point, get your chips off the table and get out of there because you never know what's going to happen. Luka could tear an ACL tomorrow, and what's going to happen to his card prices then? So I am happy with the return that I can get off of these cards. I'm not going to fret where they could go in the future. I like the return that I'm going to get, and my educated guess is telling me now is likely the time to sell. So I'm going to go forward with it with confidence and be happy with whatever the return is. I would love to hear what you guys think. Are you holding Luka cards? What are you going to do with your Luka cards? What do you think of my thoughts and my analysis today? Leave your comments on this YouTube video or go to my Facebook group or my Discord chat server. By the way, my Discord chat server just reached over 1,000 members, and we're going to do a cool giveaway in the next week to celebrate the fact that the Discord has pushed over 1,000 members. So if you are not on the Discord chat server, you're going to want to join and take part of that free giveaway. It's going to be great. Go to sportscardinvestor.com and click on Discord chat in the main menu bar, or you can click on the Facebook group also in the main menu bar of sportscardinvestor.com. Guys, thanks for watching. Look forward to hearing your thoughts on the show. See you again for the next show on Wednesday. Take care.